When you think of the greatest witch to ever witch, what do you think of? Do you think of Silas? Do you think of Katia? Do you think of Bonnie? Do you think of Freya and Davina? Or do you think of Dahlia? That's the situation. When it comes to me, of course, my favorite character, there's Steph and Silas Kin, right? Those are my top three favorite characters. And so when I think of the smartest witch of all time, as far as the utilization of their powers, I think of Silas immediately. But the consensus change when you ask the TV fandom. They immediately bring up Dahlia. And today I'm going to be talking about how Dahlia is the second most creative witch, clever witch, adaptive witch, crafty witch of all time. When I watched the originals, right? Mind you, I watched it in order, right? So I watched The Vampire Diaries live. I watched the originals live and Legacies live. After you go to the originals from watching The Vampire Diaries and seeing how Silas was utilizing his witch powers, right? Once you go to Dahlia and you come across Dahlia, you see that the way that she used kinning, right? That was crazy. It brought in this entire idea that witches can control werewolves. We already know they can mess with their minds, right? Give them like migraines or what? How's that migraines? Give them something. You feel me? Bonnie been doing it to vampires this entire time, and she could do it to Mason. But this whole new idea of like kinning, you know what I mean, and utilizing it to control dead witches and control werewolves. You feel me? It brought this whole new aspect. When we see a witch that truly wanted to reach greater heights, you know what I mean? It wasn't like back. It wasn't. She had no moral obligation to anything but herself, to be honest. When we see that type of witch come into the originals and just the TVDU universe, well, that's the TVDU universe, the TVDU, and we see her utilizing. She's very crafty, very intellectual. One of my favorite moments from her, and you've probably seen this moment countless times, but the moment where she's surrounded. I mean, Freya's there, Esther's there, Rebecca's there, Klaus there, Elijah there, and and what ends up happening is she ends up doing this. I think she did like this, or I think she threw the white oak stake in the air and just exploded the white oak stake. Mind you, there's multiple occurrences where they say that it's indestructible. You feel me? To be honest, I feel like that's just like maybe a misconception in TVD. Maybe it's not indestructible. I mean, yeah, I don't think it's indestructible. I feel like, I guess actually, I think Esther does say it's indestructible. Yeah, I think Esther says it's indestructible. Indestructible. Anyways, whatever. When we're talking about when we're talking about like her ability to take this weapon, not only destroy it, right? Proving her power over Esther, her magical power over Esther immediately. Even in the flashback, you can tell because she's the older sister that she's cooking up more than Esther, right? She's a practicing witch. You feel me? She's practiced longer. Esther was more so, oh my gosh. But she proves that she's more powerful than Esther, breaks the thing, and then she's so good at mechanical, or I think it's called a mechanical reaction, right? Let me look it up really quickly. Mechanical reaction. Yeah, it's a mechanical reaction. A mechanical reaction refers to a chemical reaction that is initiated or influenced by mechanical forces such as grinding or milling. This process, known as mechanochemistry, allows for chemical transformations without the need for solvents, making it more environmentally friendly. Nope, that's not it. But it's a chemical reaction. Sounded more correct anyway, but it's fine. The chemical reaction is a process where substances known as reactants are transformed into new substances called products through the breaking and forming of chemical bonds. Yeah, chemical reaction. So when I say that, I mean she broke it, right? She had this thing, right? This indestructible white oak steak situation, right? She breaks it, and the immediate moment that it breaks, she transforms it into some particles. You know what I mean? To be honest, it's already like it's mass. You know what I mean? It's mass, but she transfers it into like molecular. It becomes like this molecular thing that can be inhaled. You feel me? And she utilizes that. She changes the state of it. There we go. Pretty much is what I'm trying to say, or breaks it down, I suppose. But breaks down the molecular structure, right? And she immediately has all these originals, right? You feel me? These people with like the original vampires, right? She have them intake this, and what ends up happening, what's funny about it is actually, is that it's like making it's like burning them up from the inside. It's making their veins red, but you never know if it would have killed them. You know what I mean? Now it's technically, you feel me, wood going inside of their um, respiratory system. You know what I mean? I could have said, I guess I could say vascular system. I don't know. I don't know. But they're a respiratory system, right? And so eventually one of the wooden particles would get to their heart and it will be over. Simply like, genuinely, it would just be over. So I guess, yeah, she was not only killing them, but literally about to permanently kill them. If the wooden like particles or whatever, the small wooden particles or molecules would have got inside their heart, or would have touched their heart, or would have, yeah, something like that, pierced their heart. I'm talking about pierced, would have got inside their heart. And that level of thinking, you feel me? Let's stay on track. That level of thinking is something that I've never seen before. Now, mind you, when they was pulling up to Dahlia, when I was younger and I seen that scene live, I'm pretty sure, I don't know, it would have been a 50-50, you feel me? Dahlia has proven that she's extraordinarily strong. Extraordinarily strong. But there's also this moment to where you just feel like, if there's a lot of them, you feel me, there has to be some semblance of a chance, right? But then again, I hold witches in high esteem over vampires. You feel me? Vampires is my favorite species. Psychics is my favorite species. But I hold witches in this universe in an insanely high esteem compared to I hold witches that can utilize their power to the optimal potential at a very high esteem over vampires. And so we talk about that, right? We talk about that exchange. I feel like young me most likely thought that it was over. You feel me? Not for Dahlia, but it was over for not even the Michelsons, but it was over for, they wouldn't be able to beat her. Is what I'm trying to say in that moment, in that exchange. But then again, you got to be thinking like, it's live, right? You're getting to like almost the end of the season, I guess. I think she gets taken out at the like almost a couple of episodes for the end of the season, or maybe the end of the season. I don't know. I think maybe the end of the season. So you have to be like, oh yeah. I mean, technically, they have to take out this villain. You know what I mean? So she would have to die or something. So I knew that she was gonna get mollywopped in that case. Anyways, she's clever. She's crafty. You feel me? I never used this word crafty until like I think like 2 videos ago. But she's extraordinarily crafty, and her ability to just think off the top of her head so quickly, you know what I mean, makes her the second most adaptive witch, crafty witch, intellectually inclined witch I've ever come across as outside of Silas. You know what I mean? And then you're gonna be going on and be like, a lot of people be like, well, he has no feats, right? He has no da da da. He da da da. If you love a character enough, you're gonna look at that character. You're gonna go through as many lines of that character in TVD. You're gonna dissect this character. People do it with Damon all the time, even though he's freaking superficial. You know what I mean? great backstory, superficial motivations, to be honest. But people try to make it seem deeper than it truly is 24/7 when it comes to Damon. And yet, when you ask them to look at a villain, right? A villain or another character with that same level of depth, with that same level of, hmm, I can tell via your dialogue, I can read between the lines and tell that this person's actually powerful. It's about the TV show, right? Everyone says show not tell, and yet if you don't show them, then they don't believe. Everyone and their mother says show not tell. When season 5 comes out, now mind you, I'm getting off track a little bit. When season 5 comes out and we're talking about the Traveler lore, right? It's explained a lot. You know what I mean? It's shown like uh it's shown in equal measure as explained, right? But people didn't like that because they feel like it was just explained, right? And if you explain something and people don't get it, then oh my gosh, it's a bad season. Do you know what I mean? It's a bad season, right? So people say show not tell, but then they ask for feats, right? And then if you tell them those feats, right, and they can't just be like, oh my gosh, he conjured blue flame. You feel me? Because mind you, Kessia conjured blue flame. Oh my gosh, if you can't say that he conjured blue flame, or he did this, or he did that, or da da da, da, or I didn't see him, da da da. You feel me? Then it's like, oh my gosh, he's a meaningless character. He's a worthless witch. You know what I mean? Truly, that's how people say it. When it comes to Dahlia, again, let's get back to Dahlia, right? This whole idea of like show not tell, they went insane with Dahlia. They prove like the way that they do the whole gore situation with the Michelsons, right? Because it's called the originals, right? They have to make it very gory. Fan service is not romantic in a sense, but it's more so. And I mean, I guess you could double wield, but it's more so. Fan service is in goriness. Fan service as in the amount of gore that you see to fully try to establish them as some type of powerful immortal being, right? So that's fan service. I feel like also people don't realize that the gore in the originals was strictly fan service. And how was it fan service, Demetrius? Because in TVD, the gore was barely there. So because of course we had like a lot of beheadings, right? We had a lot of beheadings. You feel me? But outside of that, it was nothing too crazy ever, to be honest. And so when we get to the originals, why is there all of a sudden extreme gore to like this obscene level? Mind you, they're both vampires. Stefan and Damon are capable of the same level of you know, inflicting harm upon like humans or yeah, well, humans, right? But they don't, right? When we're talking about the originals, they inflict harm upon like anybody, humans or vampires, or this or that, or werewolves. You feel me? And there's this weird extra level of gore to it, right? And mind you, the originals balanced the romantic fan service, and mind you, they put that on the back burner to be honest, but they have this like romantic back burnerish a little bit, you feel me? But then they hit you with like the fan service of this intense amplified amount of gore. And I feel like we strayed away from Dahlia a little bit, but I feel like fans of the originals or just fans in general, all consumers, I feel like they really underestimate how much people like gore. They like watching gore or displays of power. No, actually, it's not even displays of power because Silas was powerful, and yet he gets called weak, and yet he gets called underutilized, and yet he gets called this or that. You feel me? So it's not just displays of power, but it's displays of gore, brutalism. You know what I mean? Genuinely, that's exactly what it is. Cruel and unusual punishment. So when it comes to the originals, they amplify that up. But in TVD, they didn't have to amplify that up, and they were still loved. You know what I mean? Even in TVD, they get backlash, to be honest, about the whole plot armor situation. But it's only because in the originals, we get to a point where the brutalism is so insane over there to the point where it's like, what's happening over here? But this is the original show where it can be good without the brutalism. It can be good without the excess gore. You feel me? There's fan service when it comes to what's it called? Ships and romance, right? But we rarely delve into the gore of it all, to be honest. But then and we that's why they don't differentiate, right? The males that are getting fan service from watching the show, the women that are also, I guess, suppose getting fan service from watching the show, don't differentiate that both gore, amplified gore, and the romantic ships, you feel me, are both two different genres of fan service. But anyways, let's get back to Dahlia. Now I don't know how this ties into Dahlia, but yeah, there's many like imagine having a power, right? She learned something, right? Along the way in her years, you feel me? Her I think I think she's been alive maybe I think she spent maybe 20 years alive. I mean, like awake. You feel me? Because no, not even 20 years. I think she spent maybe 10 years max awake. As far as like after she got immortality, she would spend 99 of the years asleep, and 1 year awake. Right? And that would mean that okay, this is 1 year for this century. This is another year for this century, which means that she's only been like awake and functioning awake. You feel? Not say functioning awake. She's only been like awake with this immortality situation for 10 years max. Prior to that, she has been like this powerful dark arts witch, right? But it's like the ability to learn kinning, right? The kinning, right? And the ability to possess, you feel me? To be honest, to take control of dead witches is crazy. It's tough, to be honest. And werewolves as well. They think that they deem themselves untouchable as far as in the mind. Witches also deem themselves untouchable in the mind, and yet, once dead, they can be controlled in the mind. You feel me? Their body can be controlled. You know what I mean? To deliver a message or to do this or do that. She also had localized teleportation, but now I'm just spewing off her abilities. But it's like there's one moment, right, where Dahlia proves just how overwhelmingly powerful she truly is when she takes on both Michael and Klaus at the same time. She's snapping. She's absolutely snapping, absolutely killing it. Let's talk about how there's this moment where you realize this is what I realized when she was in that church and she was speaking to them and she's a witch and they are mere vampires, right? There's a true power difference. And of course we already know this from TVD, but there's a true like if you were a witch, right, and you were really powerful, there can be a true overwhelming power difference in your level. I mean, in the vampire versus the witch, right? In the witch versus the vampire, right? You feel me? Dahlia has, like I said, no more obligations. To be honest, no principles. I ain't gonna lie. You feel me? Oh my gosh, I came back for the deal. It's because the deal. She's a horrible person, to be honest. But even Michael and Klaus couldn't do anything against her, anything at all, to be honest. And that to me, mind you, she's just a witch. You feel me? Of course, there's this whole idea of like, oh my gosh, immortality tied to like Freya, tied to da da da, boom. You feel me? Amplified power as well is shared. You feel me? All that type of stuff, right? A lot of channeling going on, for sure. But I'm talking about a lot of channeling, a lot of linking is going on, right? But when we're talking about the power difference and it weighing so heavily when it comes to a Dahlia versus a Michael and Klaus, right? It's not just you're not just taking on Michael, he's a legend in himself, but you're taking on Klaus, who's a legend in himself, right? You're taking on two legends, and yet you mollywop them very easily. When we're talking about Inadu, let's skip over a little bit. Let's talk about Inadu. Marcel was at the height of his power. Oh, I'm the hottest shit in the world. Da da da. Mollywopped. Wham. Klaus. Mollywopped. Wham. Two Johns. 2-for-1 combo. You feel me? At the same time. At the exact same time. Like she got into your soul, it was over. And she's merely a witch, right? Of course, you can always factor in the immortality of it all, right? They're phony. half-baked immortality, which is what I always will say about Dahlia. But you can always factor that in, right? The Timu immortality, right? When we're talking about this level of power, overwhelming, I can't state this enough. The overwhelming power. You feel me? And what do you mean by overwhelming? The paralyzing. You feel me? Let me be very concise with my words here. The paralyzing power of a witch who truly has no morals or principles in comparison to any vampire. You feel me? Any werewolf. You know what I mean? That right there was spectacular. And she proved that, right? She proved her overwhelming power against these other species, right? But she also is crafty, right? She's also crafty. And when you're crafty, you're basically John Murphy. And if you're John Murphy, that means you're gonna get out of situations. You feel me? Very quickly. When you're John Murphy. But yeah, she's basically freaking John Murphy. But smarter. You're crazy, but smarter is great. That's a horrible comparison. Yeah. Crafty and overwhelmingly powerful. That I love that combo so much. One thing about Dahlia's character is that she's very serious, right? For that season, she had a theme song. You know what I mean? For that season, she was like, "Woo, spooky," right? Genuinely, she was like, "Ooh, spooky." She took the spooky route. You feel me? And maybe that's genuinely how the character is written. To be honest, you feel me? I feel like in these shows, the character is like written a certain way, but you can portray what they're saying. You feel me? This is the definition of acting here. But a character is already written a certain way. You get a character like Dahlia, right? Who's spooky and scary and da da da. And you can truly dive into this evilness, you know what I mean? If you want to, being the actress, you know what I mean? But then you get a character like Silas who on paper is humorous but also immortal, who's also like an old grandpa who speaks Polish because you know. You know what I mean? And you have to be able to traverse and portray this character to. Mm, there's some nuances there. You feel me? Where you can like, okay, do I be like extra funny and goofy and ha ha ha, or I do like, huh, say funny jokes, very deadpan. You know what I mean? When it comes to Dahlia, she killed that role. I brought this up because I was gonna say that she made her character like really serious, but then I thought of the theme music and knew that like okay, she was given the character Dahlia, right? With the personality already built in. So she just had to live in it. You know what I mean? She's made to be this scary person. When we're talking about Sybil before we see her in TVD, she's made to be this scary. You know what I mean? Kay does this really well as well in TVD. But Dahlia, yeah. When we're talking about crafty, a lot of the fandom will just immediately go to Dahlia or maybe even include Anato just to be like, oh my gosh, Anato's older than Dahlia. But a lot of fans will just like immediately go to Dahlia and be like, she's the smartest witch. She's the most creative, the most adaptive, the most crafty witch ever, the most innovative witch, the most quick on her feet witch ever. You feel me? They would say that. But of course, me being me, I say Silas. Um, I, can I be honest really quickly? And I hate when I say this because I say the dumbest thing ever afterwards, but I say the most like uh, thing ever afterwards. But like, I hate when people disagree. You know what I mean with what I'm talking about because I truly believe, just like many others in this world, that's so annoying. But I truly believe that everything that I say is correct all the time. So if I say like Silas is the most crafty witch, and someone says that, oh my gosh, he has no feats. Dahlia is more smart, more crafty, more brilliant, more innovative, more adaptive, more clever than Silas will ever be. Silas is nothing but a nobody witch and a nobody sidekick, right? Usually that's the comments that I usually get, you feel me? Or response that the type of response or type of energy for a response that I usually get when I bring up Silas. But yeah. When people like disagree with me, I just find it to be so interesting. and not like interesting in like an interesting way. It's like interesting in like this person actually is um a little, you feel me? 5 people in the classroom. You know what I mean? But yeah. I put so much time into TVDU lore. But then people come on here and say like, "Oh my gosh, Hope is the most powerful being of all time," or Dahlia is like the most crafty witch. So you see how I said she's the second most crafty, but truly, yeah, everyone outside of Silas, well, every witch outside of um whatever. Hopefully, you like the video, subscribe, turn on post notification bells. It sounds so generic, right? Hit the post notification bell if you actually enjoyed this video. You feel me? If you want to see more, you feel me? You will know when I drop if you were to hit the notification bell. Like this video if it entertained you or informed you of the lore a little bit more, or you enjoyed my yapping video or my talking head video or this yap session. Uh, and I don't want to say like comment on the video, but you may comment on the video if you want to. Um, in this fandom, there's a lot of people who like stick to like there's not a lot of genuine conversations being had, just like because of the demographic, right? If you're like super young watching TVD, you're gonna have all these brain dead NPC generic takes, right? But if you've been in the TV fandom for a trillion years, right? Not like genuinely a trillion years, not like, oh my gosh, I've been in the fandom for like 3 years. No, 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 no. Or 5 or 7, right? But no, no, no. Like really a lot of years, like 10 plus. You know what I mean? If you've been in the fan for like 10 plus, there's this different level of theories that we're at, right? So when I say that Silas created the immortality spell, it's not something insane to you, right? You feel me? Or like that Silas and Ketsia worked the immortality spell, right? It's not that insane to you because you know this to be fact. Whatever, man. Whatever. Yeah. Bye.